I'm Kishore Vidyasagar. I'm the lead organizer for Miro User Group Tamil Nadu chapter. I'm working as a product designer at Covid.co, designing experience for B2B SaaS and enterprise applications. And today we have Gautam Kandavel. He works as a senior product designer at Soliton Technologies, and he has experience working with the startups and B2B organizations. And today we're going to discuss about UX design, the job market, and we'll be sharing tips and tricks on how to get started with the UX design. So without any further delay, let's get started. Over to you, Gautam.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining. Yeah, like Kishore said, this is our first event as a part of Tamil Nadu chapter. So, hoping for a wonderful session today. And as Kishore mentioned, right, I am a senior product designer working at Soliton Technologies. So I design experiences for enterprise applications for semiconductor industry. So if you take remote work, right, 2020 was the trial period kind of thing, which you get for when you purchase anything new, right? That was like the trial period for remote work. People were wondering, how will remote work proceed? What is the, prospect, and what is the, whether remote work will survive, whether people will work remotely, all those doubts they were having. But, as 2020 got over, companies got realized that, remote work is here to stay, right? So that is what we are going to discuss, in the end. So we'll be discussing how remote work will impact UX design, the salaries, the job market, how to get job in this remote scenario, right? When people are not working from offices. So how can UX designers can maximize this situation and adapt to it, right? So we'll all be discussing about this more specifically towards this at the end. We'll be discussing about the salaries as well. But yeah, so before that, I would like to get started with a few other topics before we come to remote work. So the agenda for today is, I'll be discussing whether UX design is a good fit for you. How can you find whether UX design is suitable for you? What are the ways you can realize that? And so in the block, right? So many people are from different backgrounds. So in whatever background you are from, right, it is not any blocking state for you to become a UX designer. I will be discussing about that. And once you realize that UX design is right for you, I'll discuss about how to get started with learning UX and what are the different options you have in front of you to learn, to the best as possible, right? And then after you get a grasp of UX, then getting an internship, getting a job, what are the different techniques you can use to get an internship and a job. We'll be discussing about that. And of course, as I said before, right, I'll also touch upon remote advantage and how does it impact UX design. So if you have any questions while I'm presenting, right, feel free to ping in the chat, and either I'll reply as soon as I see this message, or towards the end, we'll be having a Q&A session where we can go more in deeper with each of the individual questions you might be having. Okay, so is UX design right for you? So before you start anything, right, it's always good to know whether something is right for you. Whether instead of spending lots of years, money into something and then realizing that it's not good for you, it is always not recommended, right? So I would always recommend that you introspect within yourself and see whether UX design is a good fit for you, and then go full-fledged into it, right? So I'll be discussing the different techniques you can use to see whether UX design is a good fit for you. So to realize this, right, I'll just give an intro about at a high level. I'll give an intro about what is the role of a UX designer and the process which they follow, right? I'll touch upon this, and then I'll talk about the different skills you need to do each of these things, and we can talk about whether it is good, whether you have that skill, or whether you are passionate about learning that skill if you don't have it. So all this we'll be touching upon it, right? So the high level process is that UX designer will first try to understand what is the problem, what is the problem that the business is trying to solve, right? The UX designer will try to understand that, and then they will define that problem in a structured way. And then after the problem is getting defined, they will just then identify the target users, and then the UX designers will go to interview or research that particular focus group of users, and they will do user research, competitor research. And after they do this research part, right, then they will come to the analysis part, where they will do analysis on the obtained inputs and get insights from that, right? And then after they do the analysis based on the insights they have obtained, they will proceed with forming the solution. They will create wireframing, create mockups. Essentially, this is the visual design part. And then after a wireframe or a mockup is ready, then they will again go back to the target users and then see if whatever solution they have come up with, right? Whether it is a good solution, whether the users are feeling it will solve their problem or not, and all these things, it is the process at a high level. So under each of these blocks, there are multiple techniques, and there are also multiple sub blocks also. But it is not necessary to go deeper into that as of now. So this is the entire UX design process. But there are also multiple related roles as well, like product design. So you might have heard the term digital product design as also in conjunction with UX design. So the only difference between a UX designer and a product designer is that the UX designer won't think too much about the business prospects, business goals, whether whatever they are designing is aligning with the business culture, goals, and everything, right? But a product designer will actually think along with these steps. They will also think about the business, whether it is whatever solution they are coming up with, right? Whether it is really profitable to the business, or whether whatever solution problem they have identified, right? Whether that is not the real problem, or whether there's an even more bigger problem which might benefit the business even more. So essentially, they will give a lot more importance to a business also, a product designer. So that is one difference between UX designer and a product designer. And then there is one more thing called visual designer. So visual designer will essentially focus on this part actually. So they will be more focused towards wireframing, mock-up, prototyping, setting the color scheme, branding, doing icon work, doing illustrations. All these things they will be more focused towards. So they won't be too much worried about the other parts of the design. They will be visual designer will be more focused towards the wireframing, prototyping stage. And also there is one more role called user researcher, UX researcher. They will be more focused towards research work and everything, right? So, but in most of the companies, right, some of the new age companies, there won't be people specifically for each of these roles. It will be just one UX designer who has to take care of everything, right? So in that case, you will be the one person who will be dealing with all these end to end. So to do this process, right? What are the skills required by a UX designer to complete this process, right? So this is a result of a survey taken by Nielsen Urban Group. So if you haven't heard about Nielsen Urban Group, right, I would highly recommend that you go and visit that website. It is nngroup.com, right? It is like the standard. It gives us very standards of UX. They set the all the good practices and regulations. And the founder, right, Dan Norman, he's called the father of UX actually. He coined the term user experience. So I would highly recommend that you visit this website. And this survey result is actually conducted by Nielsen Urban Group. And what they found is what the most all the survey respondents said that they ranked the different skills which the survey respondents said that they feel it is necessary for UX designer. So the first skill which came on top is the prototyping skill, which is the wireframing, creating mockups, and all those skills, right? So that is definitely one of the must-needed skill for UX designer. And then the research skills. So under research skills, all those interacting with the users, talking with them, collaborating with them, efficiently identifying the inputs from a very vague scenario, right? All this will come under research skills. And visual design skills, is to be visual design skills means you know how to make things look pretty, right? So you know how to make things adhere to the brand guidelines, create pixel perfect designs, right? Visual design skills and project management skills is something which is not only important for a UX designer, but for any role, right? Project management is a really important skill which you might want to have. And then HTML and CSS. So a lot of people wonder whether, as a designer, do I need to code, right? So that is one of the most commonly asked question everywhere. Whatever forum you take, right? Do I need to code is one of the most commonly asked questions, right? I would definitely say that you don't need to code, but it is highly beneficial if you know how the code works, right? Since most of the designs you are creating are for mobile applications and web apps, right? Websites, web apps, and mobile applications, right? You need to know to design within the constraints. Each technology, like say HTML or whatever technology, right, will have its own constraints within it. So only if you know what are the constraints, you will know how to design within that. So that HTML and CSS part is definitely important for you to understand how it works, but you do not know how to write HTML, CSS, right? And selling UX. So selling UX means that, let's say you are coming up with some new solution, right? That implementing that solution requires more timeline, more budget. So that how will you convince your management that to convince or to invest more money in that particular solution, right? So in that time, you need to talk to the management and convince them that whatever solution you have come up with is really good. And essentially, you need to sell whatever idea you came up with to your management, to the business stakeholders, right? So that is called a selling UX. And group facilitation is nothing but, if you need to run any brainstorming sessions, or if you want to research people, interview people as a group, right? You need to know how to run that facilitation, how to run those meetings. So that is very important. Writing skills, whatever design you create, there will be some kind of content in it. So you need to know how to write that content, because you should not convey the wrong meaning, which would spoil the entire experience, right? So there are actually multiple skills beneath that, but these are the top skills which I would like to highlight now. I would also like to say that it is not necessary for you to have all these skills. Like you said, right, there are multiple roles associated with UX design. So you need to know which role which is apt for you, and then see which are the skills which comes under that. So if you take UX researcher, right, they will be more concentrated towards this skill. They won't be really worried about prototyping and visual design aspects, right? So similarly, whatever role you pick, the skills which are related to that role, you need to see what are those skills and be good at it, right? I would say that you introspect within yourself and see whether you have any of the skills, or even if you don't have, right, you need to know whether you are passionate towards developing these skills, right? If you are not passionate towards developing these skills, then you need to know what other roles would fit you, right? So on continuing on this side, so after you identify that UX is right for you, you need to also know what aspects of UX you are most drawn towards, right? So if you, my personal take is that, talking from my experience, I was drawn towards UX because I was doing graphic design in my college. So I was always, interested towards making things look good. That is one thing I always liked doing, and that is one area which was there in UX as well, right? And also the second thing which I drawed me to UX was that I wanted to talk more to people. I wasn't really an extrovert. I was always an introvert who didn't feel comfortable talking to people in my earlier days. So that skill I wanted to improve, and that's why I came to UX. And the third thing which drawn me to UX was that as a UX designer, you will be working with a lot of cross-functional teams. So you will be working with the project management team, you will be working with the digital marketing team, you will be working with the development team, you will be working with the business management team, right? So essentially, you will be gaining a lot of knowledge in you, right? So you will get the entire understanding of the business, you will gain the entire understanding of how to implement a solution. So that I really wanted to get that cross-functional knowledge of how different teams work and everything, right? So these are the three things, which personally drew me to UX. So similar to that, right, I would actually advise you to see within yourself and identify what are the things in UX which you are most drawn towards, right? So essentially, right, some people, I have come across say that they see that some people getting a lot of salary in UX, and they feel more drawn towards that aspect, getting a high salary, right? That is actually, my personal take is that is actually a wrong intention of getting into UX, right? So if you take the person who is earning a lot of salary, right, those are the people who are really interested and passionate about what they do, the skills which I talked about in the previous slide, right? They are the people who are spent a lot of time in perfecting those skills, and that is why they are earning so much salary now, right? So it is directly proportional. But if you go into UX with the aim of earning more salary and not passionate about what you do, about those skills which I talked about, then you will end up not earning that much amount of salary, right? So going with that intention is definitely, I would not recommend it. And yeah, so essentially see whether the skills or aspects you see in UX are sustainable and long term, and whether you are you have that ability to spend entire career in it, right? See, introspect within yourself. Okay, so after all this, right, people wonder, okay, I am not from a design background, I am an engineer, I am a psychologist, or I am working as an accountant, I am working as a business development executive, but now I feel that I want to become a designer, right? So then a lot of people get stuck in that state. How will I become a designer when I don't have any design experience or design knowledge? I would strongly suggest that, design, UX design is not particular to any set of people. Anyone can become a designer if they just put in the effort, right? And one more statistic which I would like to suggest is that most of the designers who are practicing now in the current scenario, right, they are not really started off with a design background in their first stage itself. Most of the designers who are currently working, right, they either belong to three categories. One is that they started off with a non-design degree, non-design education. Then they explored on their own, become a designer, and then maybe they took up a design degree or some other formal design education. That is one category. And the second category is career transitioners. They would be working in a separate career, not related to UX. They would be working in a totally different career, and then they feel that I feel that I want to become a designer, and then they decide that they want to transition to design, and then they do it. That is the second category. And the third, very rare category is the one who realize initially itself that I want to become a designer, take a design education in their bachelor's degree, and then come to design. So the third category is very rare, and the first two categories, right, coming from a non-design background. Those are the two most major categories of people who are currently working in design. So don't feel low on confidence. Even if you don't have design knowledge as of now, you can definitely become a designer if you just put in the right amount of effort. So I would also like to state some examples, right? So let's say you're an IT graduate as of now, you're an computer engineer or something. So then you would actually have a strong knowledge about how the technology works. So that means when you become a designer, you know how to efficiently design for that particular technology. And let's say if you're a content writer, so if you saw before in my previous set of slides, right, UX writing is an important skill in UX. You need to craft headlines, you need to craft the body text, everything. So if you're a content writer, you already know how to craft really good content. So that means you will definitely become a good designer. Software engineer, yeah, similar to what I said before, right? You understand the technology, and hence you can design really good solutions. And client relationship manager or any business oriented roles, right? So that means you are in a role which involves you to interact with a lot of clients. You are a person who are interacting with a lot of people, right? So in UX also you need to interact with a lot of people, right? So that means you already have those necessary soft skills which will make you a good designer, right? So if you take UX, right, there are two things. One is the hard skills like markup designing, visual designing. Another is the soft skills like talking with the users, essentially the way you communicate, right? So if you come from this background, you already know how to efficiently talk with the people, and then other things, right? Fashion design, fine arts. So that means you already know how to make things look good, and that means some amount of the UX skills is already within you, right? Archaeology. So you might be wondering, how archaeology is relevant to design. So this is something, one example I came across recently in the Nielsen Norman survey, right? So this person was a survey respondent, and they said that so their archaeology job involves digging up sites and essentially understanding the people who lived long back, their desires, their lifestyle, and everything, right? Essentially, they need to understand people who lived long back, right? And they, after becoming a designer, they felt the skills they developed when working as an archaeology, right, that helped understanding the people in UX design, right? So the only difference was that in archaeology the people were long gone, they were long dead, but in UX design they were actually living people, right? So that was the only difference. But what I'm coming to say is that in whatever stream of career you are, stream of education you are in right now, right, you can find some way to relate that field of career, that field of education to UX design, right? So that is one thing definitely which is an advantage for you folks. Okay. Any questions? I'll just go look into the chat. Okay, yeah. So Ina asked the question of how difficult it is to transition to UX design from graphic design. Okay, so my journey was that, like I said, I was initially doing graphic design in my college days, right? So then I got a job as a graphic designer only. I took up a graphic design role in a startup company, and then what I did was there was also a UX designer working there. So then that UX designer left that role, and there was a vacant position for that role in that particular startup. So then I was really interested towards learning it. So then I approached my company and my boss and asked them, if I could transition to UX, and that's how I came to UX, right? So initially, for the first few months of my career, I was working as a graphic designer, and then transitioned to UX when one person left that role. So it totally depends. So if you, like I said, right, if you just try to put in the right amount of effort, you will, in whatever stream of career you are, or in whatever stream of education you are from, you will definitely can become a UX designer. Okay, now I'll move forward to start, how to learn UX, right? There are multiple ways you can learn UX, and I would like to touch upon the different ways as of now. So one is the three different ways you can learn UX is the self-learning. You can learn on your own, or you can take up a degree course in a university or a college, or you can get enrolled in a bootcamp. I would like to go more deeper into each of these and talk more about these. So when it comes to learning UX, right, one of the most common questions which people ask is that, do I need a design degree? So it is always troubling, and even I was troubled with, I don't have a design degree, right? I am a self-taught UX designer, and I feel I am pretty comfortable with UX design from where I came from. But still, when I see people graduating with design degrees, I used to feel uncomfortable whether I need to enroll myself in a degree and learn, right? But if you think that you need a design degree, my strong learning was that I talked to my seniors, and my learning was that you don't need it. It's not necessary for a design degree to take a design degree. Whether you want it or whether you don't want it, that's another area. But if you think you need it, I don't think it is you can term it needed, right? So that is definitely not there. But that is definitely, there are multiple advantages to design degree, and some of those advantages are you get proper guidance, right? When you enroll yourself in a college or a university, there are multiple professors who are there to guide you. There are peers of your age and of your level whom you can study together with, and if any doubts, you can readily approach your professors. They are there for that, right? So you get proper guidance. And second one is that you don't require as much self-discipline as when you are studying on your own, right? So when you are studying on your own, you are not answerable to anyone. There are no professors, there are no co-students or anyone, right? You don't feel obliged to study. But when you in a degree college, when you're doing a degree, you always need to take up the semesters, exams. So there is always something which can motivate you, and you don't need to motivate yourself, right? That you need to do in self-learning. So in college, when you are doing a design degree, self-discipline is required. I definitely won't say that self-discipline is not required, right? But it is not required as much as when you are self-learning, right? And gets you noticed. So when you do a design degree and highlight it in your portfolio or mention it in your resume, right? That is one thing as a fresher people notice in your resume. So if you don't come from a design background or design education, people will sometimes wonder, will look deeper into your profile. But if whether if you are whether you have the degree in the first step itself, right? People will notice, and getting a job as or internship as a fresher becomes easier, right? So that is not to say that people without a degree won't get a job. That is definitely not there. But it just takes you one step forward to getting a job or internship, because it gets you noticed ahead of people who don't have a design degree. And structured way of learning. So when you enroll in a design degree, right, there is a syllabus, there is examination. You know what to learn now and what to learn in the next month, what to learn in the next year, right? So there's a structured way of learning, but that you don't get when you're doing self-learning, right? So you don't know in what path you need to go, what you need to learn first, what you need to learn next, right? That structure you don't get in self-learning, but you get in a design degree, right? But design degree, yeah, right, you need to put in a lot of time, lot of money. Maybe if that particular university is not in your city or country, right, you need to relocate. So all those things are there, but in self-learning, you can just learn from the comfort of your home. So that, that is certain disadvantage when I see when it comes to design degrees. Self-learning. So the attributes of self-learning is that you get unstructured way of learning. So you can learn what you want to. When you take a design degree, right? Sometimes not all subjects will interest you. You won't feel interested to learn every subject, right? But in self-learning, right, you get to choose what you want to learn, right? It is entirely your life, your career. You get to decide. And there are abundance of resources, right? There are multiple YouTube videos, there are multiple streams of resources which are available for free or for minimal amount of money, right? You get a lot of resources in that manner. But like I said, right, you require extreme self-discipline. You need to motivate yourself. You need to stay on track. You need to efficiently time manage yourself, and all these things you definitely need to do. And most of the designers are self-learned. If you compare the percentage of designers who are coming from a design degree versus the designers who are self-learning, right? I would definitely say that most of the designers are people who are initially self-learned in the beginning, and then they might have then they might have felt that, okay, I need to take one more degree. Like they were then after self-learning some part of their career, right? After 2 or 3 years, they would have self-learned and then got on a job for 2 or 3 years. And then after that, they might go to do their masters in design. So that is definitely one path you need to take, you can take. But initially, most of the designers come as self-learned. And the cost, right? Definitely, there's a certain advantage of self-learning. It is literally, you don't need to spend any amount of money. There are a lot of free resources available online. And even there are multiple courses which you can take for, comparatively less amount of money, right? Okay. And the different resources you can learn from. One is the definite YouTube channels, right? If you just take YouTube videos, there are multiple free content creators who give very, very good knowledge on UX in the YouTube channels. If you ask me, what channel do I need to follow? You can just keep on exploring, right? So how YouTube works is that if you just search for UX video and watch 2 to 3 videos, right? Then the next time when you come to when you come to YouTube, there might be hundreds of UX videos waiting in your feed, right? So you can definitely curate your feed in that manner and keep on learning in that way. And blogs, there are multiple blogs by certified companies, like I mentioned previously, right? NN Group is one such company who produces quality blogs, quality way of learning. They give really good quality of content which you can certainly learn from. And there are multiple other companies like Miro has their own blog, Invision App has their own blog, Dribble has their own blog, and also when you go to Medium, right, there are multiple publishers like UX Collective. Now all these people are publishing really good quality of content in their websites, which you can certainly follow. And mentorship. So mentorship, if you take, right, there are if you get a mentor, they would actually analyze where you are, at what stage you are in right now, and they would actually suggest what to learn, how to learn. They can give you feedback and everything, right? But where to find mentors, right? Some people would have this question. I'm not sure if you have heard about this website called ADP List. It is called Amazing Design People List. There are multiple people available there who can mentor you for literally no amount, right? You can just schedule a one-to-one session with them, converse with them, get their inputs, share their experiences, and learn, right? And the fourth way is courses, like Coursera, Udemy, Skillshare. For literally less amount of money, you can get a really good certificate and you can learn a lot. And social media. Okay, social media entirely depends on how you use it, right? Social media, I won't say it as active learning. I would more say it as a passive learning. Like maybe you're doing a course as an actively learning through a course, and then on the side, maybe if you're following some certain experienced designers in social media, right? LinkedIn, Twitter, they share their experiences in their social feed. So when you are following them, right, you get to learn from their experiences. So that is one way of learning. And so one course which I would definitely recommend you to take now is that this certification by Google. So Google has released their own professional certification in UX design that is available in Coursera. So you can enroll in a monthly subscription. You can take a monthly subscription in Coursera and then enroll and take up this course. So they say that if you spend 10 hours per week learning this, you can complete this in 6 months. But that is entirely up to your own speed, right? If you are able to spend more than 10 hours per week, you can definitely complete this a lot faster. And one thing which I would highlight here is that Google has said that they would actually give a lot of value to the certification in their hiring process, right? So Google has said that when they're recruiting someone, they actually give a lot of importance to this particular certification, right? So I would highly recommend that you take up the certification, and it is Coursera monthly subscription is just available for about 1,000 rupees per month, about $15 per month, right? So you can definitely take enroll in this Coursera and take up this. And books, okay, books, it might not be for everyone. People may not be used to reading a huge books, and they might not have the time, right? So these are some of the books which I found it useful. You can definitely read it, purchase this and read it. They are also available as a digital version in Kindle. You can also download this on your Kindle device and learn it, right? That is definitely one way you have. But for the people who don't have that much amount of time, right, who are not used to reading, huge books, there are multiple apps like Blinkist. They actually provide short summaries of the books in about 10 minutes or 15 minutes, right? So for people who don't have the time, you can readily plug in your earphones and listen to the summary of the books in 10 minutes or something. So right, that way you can cover a lot of books in a short amount of time, and you also get that knowledge. So coming back to this, do you need a design degree? No, I definitely won't say that you need a design degree. But if you want to do a design degree, you can definitely do it, right? It is entirely up to you. There is no need for you, but if you want to do it, you can definitely do it and gain that knowledge. And then there is the third option, which I was talking about initially. That is the boot camps. So it is like the best of both worlds. Like you don't, have to sit alone and learn on your own. At the same time, you don't have to go to a college and spend 1 or 2 years and learning it, right? You can take up this boot camp, right from your home, there are in-person boot camps as well. And the length of this boot camps also is not as much long as a design degree. So this is something which I see as the best of both worlds. And if you think boot camp is right for you, you can definitely enroll in it. So these are the different companies which are offering boot camps, like General Assembly, Springboard, Designboard, 10K Designers, GrowthSchool.io, right? So General Assembly and Springboard are available for international people. That might be slightly expensive for Indian people. It costs about 4 lakhs or 5 lakhs for the entire course. But if you feel that is expensive, you can definitely enroll in 10K Designers. It is like a cohort-based group where you can enroll for it costs about 65K or something for an entire duration of the course, a boot camp. And then you can learn that you would get classmates. I mean, you would get co-study, students, right? You can learn with them, and you get mentors and all these people. So GrowthSchool.io is one more example which I found. So it is actually in the initial stages. They don't have a formal boot camp as of now, but they have something called a workshop, Kickstarter workshop. So for people who are not sure about what to learn and how to learn, right, I would definitely recommend you take up the GrowthSchool.io workshop. It is available at a very cheap 500 rupees workshop. So it is for about a day or two. So if you are feeling confused whether UX design or UI design is right for you, you can definitely take up this workshop and learn. So that is what I had regarding learning. I would check the comments. Okay, so difference between full stack versus UX UI. So full stack is just a fancy term, I would say. There are multiple fancy terms coming with, if you take the field of UX design, right, they say that there are almost 150 unique terms, but they essentially relate to the same thing, right? If you call yourself a full stack designer, it just means that you're doing end-to-end design process, which I talked about initially, right? It just means you're doing product design. But full stack developer is different. I hope you are not mentioning about that. Getting internship, I would talk about in my forthcoming slides. Okay. Simran has requested some links for UX design. I hope some of the links which I mentioned now are proving useful to you. If not, we'll also be sending across this presentation to you. You can always refer to it later also. Monisha, so I talked about the difference between UX designer and a product designer earlier. So I would suggest that we would send across this recording, and you can refer back to this and know more about the difference. Right. Okay. Okay. So next I would go to practice, right? So now that you have learned to some extent what is UX design, through either through a course, through a self-learning, or through any mentorship or a boot camps, right? So once after you complete that, it is not going to end at once. So you need to practice a lot, you need to do some stuff, and then only you can get noticed, right? I would highly suggest that you learn any of these tools, right? There are multiple categories of tools are available for you to learn from. There are multiple visual design tools like Figma, Sketch, XD. Pick any of these. No need to learn all of these, right? All of these are essentially the same thing. Actually, 75% of the features are the same thing in all of these tools, right? It is good enough if you learn at least one of these tools. And interaction and motion design is for the so interaction and motion design is about the fancy interactions which you see, right? So when you click on something, it might animate in some way, it might transition in some way, right? So how do you create those transitions and animations, right? So that you can create using Prototype and After Effects. And user research, brainstorming, wireframing. So for that, you can definitely use the Miro tool, which we are talking about now. So the slides which I create now are right from Miro, right? So that is one of the best remote collaboration tools available now for you to collaborate with remotely. And you can also do wireframing. You can also do research analysis. You can conduct brainstorming sessions. You can do workshops. Everything you can do in Miro. And Figma is another alternative. And usability testing is something you do when you already designed something, and then you have to check the design whether it is working properly or whether it is a good design or not, right? For that, you need to do usability testing. So again, there are multiple tools available for this, like Usability Hub, Google Analytics, Hotjar, right? So be aware of these tools, but I would suggest that you become really good at these tools, like visual design tools. I would suggest that you become good at these things, right? And also Miro and Figma, right? So either like I said, you can learn at just one of these, not necessary to learn all of these. Just you can take just one of these and learn, and practice designing, and be active in social media. So whatever you designed, right, be open in publishing them in social media. So only then you will get noticed by people, and then you might get the chance of getting hired for internship, right? So only when you get noticed, only when you're more active in social media, like Dribbble, LinkedIn, Twitter. So that is one thing, which should get you noticed. So don't worry about whether whatever you're designing is perfect or whatever design you're new to design after all, right? So your design might not be perfect in the initial stage, but don't worry about that. So whatever you design, you create, make sure you publish them in social media, make them your, then you get noticed by the people, right? So that is one thing you definitely have. And other than these things, right? Also share your learnings. So when you share your learnings in Twitter or LinkedIn, right, you are actually helping people who are in the same stage as you. You get the opportunity of learning along with a lot of people, and you get noticed. So these are the high level ways you can definitely use to get a design internship, right? As I mentioned, right? So those are the things you can use to get an internship. But why in internship, right? So people might be wondering, why do I need to get an internship? So one thing which is really important is you get exposure to real projects. When you're in the learning phase, right, you might be working on some pet projects. I think someone asked what is a pet project, right? So that is something you're really interested about. Like say you want to design an experience for mobile shopping or movie ticket booking, right? So you want to design an experience of that, right? So you can take that as a pet project and talk with people, do some research of your own, and design some experience about it based on your level, right? So those are called pet projects. But when you take an internship, right, you get exposure to real projects. You get exposure to working as a part of a team. You know how that particular company works, how the particular design team works, and then that team would have senior design members who are part of the team. So they can mentor you, they can guide you in a certain manner, and all this mentorship you can get when you get an internship. And so when you enter in an internship, right, you are assigned to a particular project. So those projects, if that company allows it, you can definitely add it to your portfolio. And when you're looking for a full-time opportunity, right, when that recruiter sees that you have worked on a real project and not just pet projects, that definitely adds weight to your portfolio and your resume, right? So the projects which you add to your portfolio as a part of an internship is definitely going to prove very useful to you. And like I said, right, this acts as a gateway to your full-time opportunity. So these are the reasons which I see as one of the primary factors why you should definitely enroll in an internship. And how to get a design internship, right? So some of the things like practice, which I talked about earlier, right? Keep practicing the design tools, keep practicing the different techniques available in design, and don't worry whether you are perfect or not. Don't worry that it is not up to the level of what senior designers are publishing, right? People are not concerned about that. So be confident in whatever you do and show off your work, right? Be confident that whatever work you are doing is really good, and publish them in LinkedIn, publish them in your Dribble profile, Twitter, and maybe you can tag a senior designer in there and ask for their feedback, right? So that way you're also establishing yourself as someone who's looking for feedback. That is a really important attitude in any designer. And networking with senior designers, like you said, right? If you network with people, you get a lot of knowledge. You can get experience. Their experience, people can share with you. And one of the main advantages is that people can refer you to a full-time gig, right? If you interact with senior designers. And the third thing is that don't try to be an expert designer. Be an expert learner. So you are in your initial stages of your career. You are just now transitioning to UX design. So that means that you are not at an expert level as of now. But in my experience, what I've seen is that some people try to be an expert. They act like, this so-and-so company has a major flaw in their design. This is how I've solved it. So they project their pet projects in that way, that some company has a major design flaw and that a person with no experience has solved that, right? But how do you know that? How do you know whether what you have done is really a good solution? And how do you, so saying that that company has done a major design flaw, right? That means that company who has a specific design team, they have 10 to 20 people or maybe hundreds of people working in design, they are wrong, right? So that actually projects in a wrong way. Don't pinpoint fault. Don't say that this experience is wrong, this experience is really faulty. Don't try to pinpoint fault. So rather say that here is my take on a mobile checkout experience. Here is my take on a mobile movie ticket experience. And what is your feedback on this, right? So now you are saying it like it is entirely your opinion. You are not blaming anyone, right? You are not saying anything wrong. You are not saying that you are the only person who are correct, right? Don't project it in that way. When you're asking for feedback, when you're expressing that it is just your opinion and asking for feedback, right? So that means you are actually projecting yourself as a learner who is open to learning more, who is open to feedback. People see this as a really good attitude in yourself, right? So now one more advantage of this is, so let's say you take one particular company's user experience and you design your own take on it, right? You can, you write a case study around it and you take that case study to that very company and say that here is my suggestion on your experience. What do you think about it, right? So rather than saying that you have done a major flaw, here's how I solved it, you say that here is my take on your experience, right? So now you are just giving your take, and you can give that case study to that company itself, and if they find it good, they would actually recruit you. So if you project yourself as a learner in that manner, that is definitely a possibility. And design challenges and hackathons, a lot of companies conduct various design challenges, hackathons, as a part of which they recruit you for internship. Okay, I'll look into the chat section now. Okay. So finally, getting a job, right? Some people, get a job even before an internship, but some people, can do an internship and then get a job. So I'll be discussing the different techniques, you can use to get a job, right? So okay, some of the salaries, right? Salaries of this full-time jobs actually depend on the organization type, and what type of organization it is, whether it is a startup, whether it is an established company, right? The salaries of this full-time job depend on these factors, and also whether what country it is from, whether it is from your own country or whether it is from developed countries like US. The salary you get also depends on this, and the value you bring. So the value you bring means how much of an expert you are and how much skilled at whatever you do are, right? So how much you can contribute to the company definitely sets a bar for your salary. And the different techniques you can use, right? Like I said, make yourself known outside. This is what I was talking about earlier when I talked about internship, when I talked about showing off your work, right? When you build a personal brand for yourself and you make yourself known outside, people start noticing you, right? You get noticed by people, and that's how you can increase your chances of getting a job. And the second way is that standing out with a kick-ass portfolio. So when you design your own portfolio with some pet projects, with your internship projects, and you showcase your storytelling aspects in that way, you showcase your skills in your portfolio, and you stand out in that manner, right? You definitely have a great chance of landing a job. And LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is one of the best platforms which I would definitely recommend for you to make utmost use of. Post regularly, be active in LinkedIn, talk with a lot of people, network with other designers. And when you build a good rapport with other designers, right, you can feel more confident about it and ask for a referral from them, right? That is one thing. And the fifth point is that you can directly contact the recruiters on LinkedIn. Maybe if you see a job opening in LinkedIn, or whether even if there is no job opening, but there is some company which you want to work in desperately, right? You can contact the recruiter of that company and ask whether how do I get selected in your company, or what are the things you look for in a new recruit, right? You can directly contact the recruiters on LinkedIn and build a healthy conversation, and that's how you can get selected. Okay, so if you take India, so now comes the salary part. So if you take India, so like I said, right, the salary depends on a lot of factors: organization type, location, and the value you bring to the table. So if you average all these things, all the cities across India, all the companies present in India, so the average entry level base pay you can get as a designer is around 6 to 8 lakhs per annum, right? So this is based on several sources like Glassdoor. You can even research on Glassdoor about how much your favorite company is offering as a salary. And even there's one more website called payscale.com that also gives a good salary insights, right? So this is the entry level, base pay averaged across all cities, and all companies over India. But when talking about India, or even if you are from an international country, right? Even if you are from some other country, you don't need to restrict yourself to just your country, right? So this is the point which I was talking about initially, right? When I was talking about 2021, it is the year of remote working. You don't need to restrict yourself to just your country. It is the era of remote working. You can work for any company anywhere, sitting from the comfort of your home, or even from city or wherever you want to. It is not work from your home. It is work from anywhere, actually, right? So you don't need to restrict yourself to your country. And Miro, so one of the prime factors which is facilitating this remote working collaboration is Miro. So they actually, provide a platform for you to collaborate remotely, do the research process, you can interact with other designers, you can interact with your core team members, you can interact with their users, you can, conduct workshops, and all these things you can conduct remotely from anywhere, right? You can just sit from the, wherever you want to, and your teammate can sit from anywhere they are, and you can remotely collaborate with, and you can, do your own research and everything. They have, if you take Miro, right? There are multiple templates they have, you can, if you just go to Miro and see here, right? There are multiple research templates, ideation templates, agile strategy, planning, and all these things they are ready-made available. And if you go to Miroverse, right, they have all these people actually publish what they are doing. So if you take even these big companies, right, Atlassian, Zendesk, AJ and Spot, they are actually very good adopters of Miro. So this is something which I would highly recommend for for you to learn, and this is being widely adopted by a lot of companies who are transitioning to remote working, right? So Miro is something which is facilitating the age of remote working. So as I said, right, you don't need to concentrate on your own country or your own city for to work. You can work from anywhere or work for any company which is present anywhere. So if, let's say you're working for a company in US, right? So this is the salary which you get. This averaged across all experience level. This is not the entry level average salary. This you get about $80K to $95,000, right? So that is roughly about, if you convert to Indian rupees, that is roughly about 70 lakhs rupees or 80 lakhs rupees, right? So that is something, you can earn while in India. That will be a huge advantage for you working from India because of the currency conversion factor. So if you take for an entry level salary in US, right, you get about 60,000 to 70,000, which is still very good. Actually, even this translates to around 60 lakhs or 70 lakhs or something, right? So for people with 0 to 3 years of experience, you get this much amount of salary working from India to a company in US or anywhere, right? So not only from India, even if you are present in Europe or even if you are present from anywhere, right, you can work for these companies. And so how to find these companies, right? I mentioned LinkedIn. So even when you search for jobs in LinkedIn, right, you can search, now they have a filter for remote. So when you set the location of the company, right, you can set the location as remote, and there you can see the different companies who are recruiting for remote positions. So there you can identify the companies which are actively recruiting for remote positions. You can apply for that. That is all about getting jobs. Any questions? Yeah, we do have something called Designathon. That is something, just design plus hackathon is Designathon. Links to design challenges, it varies actually. Some companies, they don't, it is not active all the time. You need to closely monitor any social media accounts of the particular companies and deeply follow those companies, right? And then when they will publish in their social media profile that this challenge is happening, and you can enroll in it. You fit so where do we as a designer fit in a product design process? So you are actually responsible for the entire product design process actually. Like it is not a physical product, it is a digital product design actually. It is not a physical product actually, it is a digital product design. Why should we join a product-based company? That is entirely up to you. So it is if you join a startup product company, they get a lot of funding, and that means a lot of salary for you. And if you join a startup product company, right, the company would be small and there would be less number of people working there, and that means you would work on a large part of that particular product. But whereas you work for a huge company, right, there might be tens of thousands of people working there, and your role might become insignificant, or you might be working only on a small part of a particular product. But whereas you are working on a startup, so that is the difference. Hey Selva, so could there be a drop in salary? Maybe it can be a drop, but you can project. So it depends on the way you project, right? So when you are coming from a front-end role, right, you have an extreme amount of knowledge about the platform you're designing for, right? So that means that is a definite role you can project yourself. So it depends on the way you project. So you should not project yourself as a designer with zero years of experience. You should project yourself as a designer with 5 years of front-end experience and transition to UX design. So that actually adds a lot of weight to your portfolio. And drop in salary, it depends on the way you project and the way you negotiate. What would the other difficulties you need to overcome? Yeah, basically the difficulties which I talked about right now, right? Many difficulties which any other people are going through from any other career, right? So specifically, like drop in salary might be one of the factors, or you might have to work under people who are more who are lesser in age than you, but who are more experienced in design, right? So that thing you might need to encounter if you are already a person who has a lot of experience in other career but coming to UX design. And what would be other difficulties, right? One thing which I definitely would like to highlight, right, that so 5 or 6 years more than if you're working in a particular field, right, your mindset would be suited to that particular role. You would be completely thinking from a developer perspective. So that you need to train your mind to think from a user perspective to a solution perspective. So what I see as in a developer is that they immediately think of how can I implement this. That should not be the first thing you need to think about. You need to think about, if I implement this, what will the user benefit from this, right? The implementation part comes next. So that is one thing, that mindset shift is definitely you need to overcome. Okay, so hope I answered your questions, guys. If you have any other questions, you can feel free to ping. UX course in abroad, taking course, do you mean a design degree, Raghunathan, or do you mean a online course? If you're doing an online course, then there's no difference. But if you're taking a physical degree, then it depends on the college you're taking that degree in. Yeah, design degree means it entirely depends on the college. So it can be in India, it can be in abroad. So for any, not just for UX, right? It depends. If you take any field, it entirely depends on the college you are pursuing that any core degree from. Internship opportunities. If you are from India, Internshala is one pretty good platform where you can find internship opportunities. And a lot of companies actually publish in their platform itself. Like if you take the case of Lollipop, right? That is one thing, one great design studio present in India. So they have this internship form, for Lollipop. So you can actually open this, select the role you're interning from for, and you get a stipend for it. You can get your resume. So similarly, right, browse a lot of company websites, follow a lot of people from the favorite companies you are looking to work in, and it depends on the work you put in to find those opportunities. So this is something which I would like to highlight. Simple browsing would actually result in a lot of internships. Okay. Yeah, that is all I had, team. Kishore.
Yeah. So I would like to answer a few questions here. So one is like for Shrita's question, why should we join the product-based company? So there are it depends, as Gautam mentioned, it totally depends. Like so yeah, if it's a service-based company, so you work for projects. So if any client, so the client will be giving the projects to your company, and you will be working on that project, and it's kind of it's time bounded. Like say if the project is for 6 months, and you need to complete all your process within the 6 months, and so in service sector, like only the top companies are ready to invest in the UI UX as of now. And if a product-based company, like the product company, the timelines and everything is time bounded to the particular company you're working, and the mostly the UX practices like are heavily followed in the product-based companies. Yes, and to mention like service companies like in India, Infosys, Wipro are heavily recruiting UX designers for their process, because almost like nowadays UX design is like widely spoken topic, like for past say for past 2 years that UX design is like a heart of the topic, and like every other customers, like they need their product to be to look good, and they want their experience to be rich in their products. And speaking on the design degree part, there are Gautam mentioned a couple of pros and cons, and I would like to add a couple of points to the pros and cons for the having design degree versus not having the product design degree. And from a non-design background. So I'm from a non-design background. I have completed my bachelor's in information technology, and so I'm from a non-design background. So one difficulty I faced was like the college placements. So yeah, particularly in India, and I hope that applies to the across the globe as well. I hope, because so if in India, most of the companies coming for college placement won't recruit you for a product designer or UX designer role. In most like almost 85 to 90% of the companies. So all they come for recruitment is for developers, marketing, sales, and support kind of roles. Coming from a non-design background, so you yourself have to get into the market, and you have to search your jobs for that. So that's one major disadvantage I faced as a designer coming from a non-design background. And so this will be the pros of having a design degree. So if you are having a design degree, the companies will be come to recruit you, or mostly like they need product designers or UX designers, and they will be coming to recruit you. So this is like one major advantage of having a design degree. And regarding couple of like most of the people like asking for links for like courses and everything. So we have suppose this event, we will prepare a newsletter. We will attach links for all those like the top links for courses, boot camps, design resources, YouTube channels. Yeah, we will try to like as much as we can. We will try to attach the links, and we will be sending you the newsletter along with the event recordings. And regarding the ADP list, that's an awesome platform. Like I often like schedule meeting with some of the designers in the ADP list. I get mentorship from them. Like so in ADP list, if you can see, like there are currently 1,000 or 1,500 plus designers who work for the company scales ranges from the top enterprises to the startups. Like we have designers across the globe. So yeah, so like if you are like getting started, having a mentor is definitely a good idea. Like and working for startup as a product designer is like I work for a startup. So another one disadvantage of having starting a career in a startup where there is no product design practices. There won't be there won't be any senior people to guide you in the product design or user experience design. So in the initial stage of career, you definitely need a product senior member to guide you to get started. So in my case, there is no product designers, but what I got was like I got like I used LinkedIn and Twitter to network with other designers. I got mentorship from them even before ADP list it was started during this COVID time, and even before that LinkedIn helped me a lot. I networked with a lot of design people, and I will ask for a mentorship, and they will guide me, and so that's how I transitioned into the UX design field. And so is there any questions? Do startup jobs require a lot of experience? I would say you need lots of skills rather than having an experience. One of a product designer, Saptarshi Prakash, is he's a kind of a famous person in the UX design field. He works as a design manager for Swiggy. So what he has mentioned in his videos or channel is there is a T-shaped design. So you have a pattern called T-shaped designer, which means you can see T, right? So there is a vertical line and there is a horizontal line, which means you need to have you need to have skills in you need to practice all the skills in the not all, I would say a couple of skills in the product design, like initial set of user research, visual design, iconography, typography, then usability testing. So there are lots of skills in the UX and product design practices. So you can practice. You get to know. You need to know about all those things, and you can focus on couple of skills which you're really interested. Say if you're really interested in the user research part, you can be master at the UX research part, and you can have skills as, for the other things. So these skills will help you to get jobs in the startups. Like in startup, you need to do all the jobs. There won't be much designers to so if you take a top organization like Microsoft or Google, there will be a dedicated person to do the user research part, and there will be a dedicated person to do the visual design part. Whereas in startup, you need to do all the process from starting ideation phase till delivery. So having all those skills will help you really help you to get a job in startups, basically. Is it hard to entry-level job in a startup, not internships? I would say mostly people, if you're the best way to get a job is to do an internship, say 3 to 6 months. Like most companies, if you have a good projects in your portfolio, or as Gautam mentioned, you can have pet projects. You can have all you need is like a couple of case studies, really good case studies in your portfolio, so that if you're really good at the case studies, you can directly land in a job rather than having an internships. And the portfolio, what matters in the process, in the product, in the UX design, and in the product design, the visual design skills are just only 10% skills. What matters is the process you follow to approach a particular problem. This applies to the having a portfolio as well. What we mean by portfolio is having a good couple of case studies. In the case studies, you need to showcase how you approach the problem, what are the process you followed to approach the particular problem. So what are the research methods you followed, how you validated your hypothesis. Say example, you have placed you have repositioned a button from top to bottom. You have to provide a valid reason why you have repositioned this button, or what are all the resources what are all the researches you have done for that particular thing. So what is that the process matters. Even it applies. So if you're from a software development background, the recruiters will look for how logically you tackle the given problem. So that applies to the product design or UX design job as well. The recruiter will mainly focus on how you approach the problem and how you solve the problem. The end result is subjective. The end result is not that much important. But what matters is the process you follow. I'm applying for UX internship. Do my UI screens play a significant role in case studies? Yeah, that's what I mentioned. Like UX product design. So it depends on the organization. Say if you're applying for a startup, they look for every skills. They look for visual design skills as well, UI design skills as well. Also for the process. But in most cases, what matters is the process. Also, to mention, it's product design, and you will be delivering the UI screens. So the visual designs also matter to some extent. A lot of things like entire UX process initially. Like Gautam mentioned, about my background, I started as a web developer. So I started my career as a web developer during so I'm at 28. I graduated in 2018. So during that time, I'm not aware there is a particular discipline or particular branch called user experience. I'm not aware of that. All I know is there is a UI developer or a web designer and graphic designer roles. But right from my college days, I have that one thing in my mind is to solve users' problems. So if I design a website, always the one thing I have in my mind is how this website will solve the user's problem. So that was one thing that mainly I had in my mind. And during my college days, as Gautam mentioned, I also similarly done a lot of graphic design works for the college events and some freelancing works as well. So once after college, I didn't opt for placement, because most of the companies that came for placement are for the software development and support roles. I don't want to do that. So I getting a job for a web developer in a startup. It's a small 5-member team where I have to do everything, starting from the design till delivery, even speaking to the clients, I have to do everything. And after that, I landed in a job in a product-based company which I currently work. There I have joined as a UI developer. As mentioned, that's also a startup where I have to do all stuff. I have to take care of the marketing website. I have to create creatives and banners for their marketing team, and like a marketing team, and I have to take care of the UI development of the product as well. I done a UI development for the product as well, and I slowly when there is opportunity, there was opportunity the company scaled up, and we had opportunity for moving to for a dedicated product designer. So we steadily setting up the product design practices in the company. So that's how I transitioned into the product designer. So this is like I would say like this without not considering this as a negative. I would say this is a positive. Like you can touch base all the areas. Like you can have experience working in all the areas, which is like which you need as a product designer. And any questions?
So yeah, like Kishore was saying, right? Portfolio design is a really important part. So would you guys, like a session on portfolio? Maybe you can drop an S in chat if you would like that session.
Yeah, like a portfolio, speaking about a couple of points in a portfolio, I can say like a portfolio is not like you need to have a fancy website or anything. Even like a medium article will do. Like you can have a couple of good case studies in your medium article, and you can share that with your recruiter. So you don't need to invest heavily on creating a website. So there are lots of free tools you can. There is lots of no code sites you can use for website like Webflow, WordPress. So there are lots of things you can use for portfolio. Yeah, probably will Notion work for a portfolio? Yes, definitely. I have one of a version of my portfolio in Notion. It's like simply you need to showcase your work in a beautiful, like in a legible way to your recruiters. You can use any medium to showcase your portfolio. Even it can be a simple PDF file, but having it as online medium will be useful for sharing your works. And if you're like if your case study really stands out well, and if any recruiters are searching, or if they came across your portfolio or your case studies, there are high chances they might approach you for their job, for offering a job.
Adding to more on top of what Kishore mentioned, right? Even if you use Notion for a portfolio, there's another service called super.so. So what the service does is it gives you a personalized domain which you can use. So your portfolio will be there in Notion, but instead of having a Notion link, you can actually have your own domain and link that Notion portfolio to your own domain. So now it seems more personalized, and people would start noticing it even more. So essentially, right, in portfolio, only two things which matter is how well you are able to express your personality, and how well you are able to showcase your thought process and your design process. So these are the two most things which people will look for in your portfolio, and make sure that you're expressing it correctly, and the way you're expressing those process, right, it is very clear and very if that is for a job process, then make sure that it is really job ready, like it is not too long, it is not too short, and everything, right? So those are the two important tips which I can cover in 2 minutes.
Yeah. So yeah, I have shared my Notion page link as well. I've done similarly what Gautam has mentioned. I use a different service to mask my URL. So yeah, you can have all you need to need to showcase is that the process you're following and how you approach the problem. So that's what mainly matters in a case study. And so I have shared my portfolio link as well, but that's not updated because I've been like that's that is not left out since for the past 2 years I haven't updated my portfolio. But that Notion page, it's kind of an online version of my resume. Like if I want to apply for any job, I can simply share that Notion link to the recruiters, where I have placed all my links of my contact numbers, my social media links, and my blog articles, and I have like attached all those links to the ping. So basically, I use that as a online version of my resume.
And Kishore mentioning about the no-code technologies, right? So no-code is another thing which is really booming right now. So on top of the skills which I talked about earlier, if you also master no-code, right, it will be really useful for you also, like Webflow, Bubble. There are multiple no-code platforms, and if you are really interested, it is not a priority for you to learn, but if you are really interested, as a designer, right, we always design something and have to hand it over to developer for them to develop. But with no-code, you could develop whatever you're designing. You could develop whatever you're designing it yourself, right? So that independency and freedom you get with no-code technologies. So that is something it's an added advantage for you. So if you have time, you can definitely learn it. So my portfolio is personally I built using Webflow. That is it is still in process. Maybe you can check it out and give your feedback.
And one another thing I want to mention is like sorry, I lost.
Okay, so before yeah, I think we are slightly overrunning. But so
Yeah.
before you guys leave, right? Maybe you would really appreciate if you post your learnings from the session in LinkedIn or Twitter and tag us, right? It will actually motivate us, and also your learnings or takeaways would actually can be shared with people who wouldn't get to attend the session, right? So that will be really useful if you guys can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, so the one thing I want to mention is like transition into UX design from another field. What's the one advantage you will be having is like so from my personal experience, I was a UI developer and web developer, so I know how the front end stuff works in the website. So I have some knowledge about the platform dependencies and implementing certain flows in that particular platform. So while designing the screens, you can design anything from your creative, but you need to make sure like whether that design can be implemented, or we have that time to implement that particular design in your environment, in your developer environment. So from a UI developer, I can understand like how, if I design a screen, I can estimate how much time it will really take to develop that particular screen. Definitely coming from another stream, have an advantage in UX design. So if you're a graphic designer, you have a good understanding about the colors and all those visual aspects. So you can result beautiful interfaces in your products. So yeah, so like I think we are good to wind up the session.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would like to thank everyone who have joined and who have registered.